folks, Kim Schofield here. Welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. I hope you are doing well today. Today we are going to be creating a tag with some of Wendy Vecchi's brand new stamps and inks and other fun stuff, which you can see here. And here's a close-up of the tag that we'll be creating today. And also, I have a giveaway. So here's the goodies that I am giving away this week. Head over to my blog, which you can find in the comments, in the description below, rather, and leave a comment there on my blog. So here are some of the new products. And what is very fun about these new stamp sets is that they also include a stencil set, or some of them also have a mask. So you can see here, if I clip out this little heart, which I'm just going to use with my scissors, just a small piece of plastic, keeping that in there. Now I also have a heart mask, or I can use it as a stencil. And that is the case for all of these. Isn't this awesome? So now I have this great opening, which I can either fill with that solid image or use with that nice like sun ray image. And the word stencil, very, very cool. Or I can mask off that area. And then this set doesn't have any masks, but just have, I'm just showing you here how this fits inside Wendy's covers. She has these chipboard covers, but this just fits over the different elements of the stamped image so you can color them individually. So really fun to have both of those things in the one set. And I have all of Wendy's new stamp colors. Aren't they fantastic? So I'm just showing you here a comparison between the colors. So these are some of the new brown color, and then this one is this really pretty light yellow. Gorgeous. Sorry, I don't have all the names of the inks memorized yet, but it is written here on the tag, so you can see that a little bit. This is the new kind of a greenish, really pretty gray color. I think it's called peat moss. This one is thistle, which is a really deep, deep purple, really pretty color. And then a new blue. So you can just see how they compare with some of her other colors. So I'll list those down in the description below as well. So let's get started with making the tag. I'm going to be using the Heartfelt Art stamp set. And I also have the brand new little mini daubers, which are so much fun. I love them, along with some mini archival inks. These are Wendy's. And so actually, if you take out 2 inks there in the little, in the case, you can actually fit all of your little mini daubers in there as well. So I am using my Mini Misty, taking out that foam because I'm using these are rubber stamps. If I was to use acrylic stamps, I would keep that foam in there. But because I am using the rubber stamps, which are thicker and already have the foam on them, I can take that out. And so I'm stamping that this is just on a piece of Ranger cardstock. Nothing fancy there, but of course using my Misty, just so if I have to restamp this, which I did, my little mini ink pad there is kind of hurting on ink. I probably need another one because I use it so much. I've used it all up. So just needed to restamp that a few times to make sure that my image is nice and crisp and clear. And so once that is all set, I can take that out of my Misty, clean up my stamps, and move on to the next step. I do heat set my image too before I'm going to go and do any blending. So you can see if I was to try to color in this area with a like a Ranger round blending tool, even though it's small, it would be next to impossible to fill that in without getting ink all over the place. And so this is the joy of the Stamp It, Stencil It product line from Wendy, is that I can cover that up, cover that area up. So everything is covered. There was a little tiny hole there at the top, and so all I'm doing is covering that with a piece of scrap paper so I don't color over that. And how about this for fast coloring? Ta-da! Okay, I'm done. Look how quick that is. And none of that ink is going to go where I don't want it to go. Isn't that fabulous? I just love it. Now, obviously, you could color these images with Copic markers or something else, but, you know, really, how easy does this get? It's just like, it's fantastic. It's so fast. So now I'm going to use my little mini dauber tool Look at that, to go into just the center of the flower there. Piece of cake done. Love these. I'm like freaking out over the little tiny tools. They are so much fun. So here's what's great about this stamp set too, is now I can color each individual leaf and the rest of that flower is covered by my mask. It's great. And I'm using my small tool just because it's easier to get into those little tiny spaces. And so now even if I want to go and add a little bit more, I can. If I want to add shading, I can. Come on. Fabulous. Love it, love it. She's even got this masked off for the little teeny flower at the top. Isn't that great? Look at that. So now all I'm coloring is the top part of the little flower. I don't have to worry about any ink getting anywhere else. So I end up cutting these out, but this is especially helpful if you're stamping this onto a background where you don't plan to cut anything out and you don't want to end up with ink all over the place. And so not only are the small tools super helpful for that, but they also color in these small images really easily. So now what I'm doing is actually adding a tiny bit of shading, which is not super noticeable on this design, just because there's a lot of lines within the stamp itself and the stamp design. So, but if you see it in person, you can see a difference in the shading and the coloring. And so using that little mini dauber is just perfect for adding just a little bit of a shading there because it's so tiny. You can just get right in there. It's really great. And it actually does not pick up or hold a ton of ink, so it's wonderful for adding shading. So now I am, if you don't have this, holder for your alcohol inks and stuff, you got to get it. Fabulous. And it holds all this other stuff too. So I have some enamel accents here from Wendy. So just taking those out, get yourself this little storage cart and anything else that you get a bunch of them because it's fantastic. It holds all your little stuff. So I am adding just a few little highlights using my a white gel pen. This is a jelly roll pen. It works really nicely, actually. It writes really smooth, not a lot of skipping. So this is definitely one of my fave white pens. And so I'm just adding some highlights here and there on the flower. And that the little there's a little like a little sprig that's kind of sticking off on the right hand side. That actually is going to get cut off, and I'll add that later onto the tag. So just going in and putting in a few highlights on each of the leaves. This is like a really full cluster of leaves on the stamp image with just that one flower sticking off the middle there. So I did end up creating some layering for my leaves after I cut it out. So I cut that out and then I decided, you know what? I kind of want to create some layers and some depth of leaves there. So right now I'm not real worried about, all I did was restamp just that portion of the leaves again. And then I'll go in, I'll use my little mini blending tool again to add a little bit of shading. So going in with a lighter color yellow, doing my shading with a darker color yellow. And then I'll cut that out and layer that on top of my original stamped flower. Gives some nice dimension when it's on the tag. So now I'm going to work on my tag background, and I just have here this is a new background stamp from Wendy. So I keep my stamps on these plastic sheets. They come on these little plastic sheets, my background stamps. And that is because I store them in these little pockets. I will link to that. And you kind of can use the piece of plastic almost like an acrylic block. So I love it. I never take my background stamps off of this. So I'm inking this up with some embossing ink. Mine is from Simon Says, but you could use Versamark ink, any kind of embossing ink that you have there. And I'm going to go ahead and cover this with some white embossing powder. Love this background stamp because it's really subtle. So it's these teeny little circles, open circles, and it's just so nice as a background stamp. I love it. Would really be great on top of matte minis or florals or anything where you want to add just a little bit of design to it. So I am using my heat tool to heat up and melt that white embossing powder. It's a little hard to see because I'm kind of on a tone on tone there. And of course, we're going to go ahead and you can see the finished product there. And we're going to go ahead and do some blending with archival inks. And maybe you're thinking, archival inks, you can blend with archivals the same way you can with Distress ink? Yes, you can. Absolutely. So there's not, I really haven't found a huge difference. Of course, you're not going to get that reaction with water like you would with the Distress ink, but you absolutely can blend with them. And they blend beautifully. There's really not a problem at all. So when I started this one out, I kind of started with this lighter, I think that's sky blue, and then went in with a darker blue. And then I really liked that dark color. It's just beautiful. And I don't remember if that was, I think that's one of the new ones. I don't have the new names down yet, except for thistle and peat moss. Those are the only two that I remember. And so it was a little blue for me. So I decided to add a little yellow, which kind of brightens it up a little bit, and you'll get a little bit of green with the color mix there. So I kind of like that yellow a little bit more. It reminded me more of a summertime with my pretty stamped floral image. So now I'm just going to quickly color up my heart. And I actually went a little bit with an orange color here instead of a red. It's a nice mix. And so you can see how easily I can add color using archival. So once you get one layer on, if you want to deepen it up, you just go back and add another layer right on top of your first layer, and you can really deepen up those colors. And it works great. And it's going to dry faster than a Distress ink, especially than the oxide inks, but they absolutely work really well for blending and adding color. So I wanted to add a little bit of embossing. And so what I'm doing is I'm actually using my little mini blending tool, and I'm taking my embossing ink and just tapping it onto the design within the heart. So I'm not going around the edge of the heart. I just want it on those the little polka dots and the lines and things that are on the heart. And so I didn't go directly over, and this is Wendy's embossing powder. So I didn't stamp directly on top of the design that's there. I actually went a teeny tiny bit off to the side. So you kind of get this nice embossed area, but you can still see a little bit of the black. So you can see this here. You still see the black lines, but now you've got that little bit of shine and dimension. So now I am going to finish decorating up my tag, and I'm using this this is really pretty design stamp, which fits perfectly on the bottom of a tag. Do some more embossing. Again, this is Wendy's embossing powder. I think this is potting soil. And so I'm only taking a portion of this. I'm not going to use the little points there at the bottom, but you could do that. I just decided not to. And go ahead and add my embossing powder and then heat set that. And this is a great, this stamp here is just great for using as a border at the bottom of a tag. One of the things I love about Wendy's tags when she does her stuff, she always has, not always, but a lot of times has something different at the bottom. Like the bottom part of the tag has a little bit of a different design than the top. And I really like that. It kind of, it's a nice, design piece with your, just on the tag itself, a nice design element. But it also kind of gives you a home, a place, where to put something like the heart or the flower. So I kind of like that. It almost gives it like a floor to sit on. So I am going over that with some potting soil, and that really is just to color up the background of that tag. You can still see that shiny embossing powder coming through there. And then you know what was going to happen. Brown around the edges. Can't help myself. So yeah, got to go brown around everything because I like it. This is the new brown, actually, I think that I'm using. So I did potting soil, and then the new color, which is terrible. I should have had all the colors sitting in front of me when I started doing my voiceover. I'm so sorry. I'll list them in the description. So I'm also using Wendy's new adhesive, which was very cool. Liquid adhesive, nice thin tip, so you get just a little bit of glue. And this is just a piece of craft cardstock, and I'm just putting that there to cover up any imperfections that are there. and it gives you a nice transition between, the top part of the tag and the bottom. So now I'm inking up Wendy's linen background with some of that nice, this is one of her new inks. So love the linen background. Again, subtle, perfect background, just this little hint of design. And then I'm going to use this kind of sunray stamp set from her other new, one of the other new stamp sets. Again, oh, she's going to kill me. I don't know the names of anything. It's terrible. I'm so sorry. Check the description for everything below. So I am just stamping that little, look at that. Isn't that the coolest thing ever? Gorgeous. Love it. So I actually decided to go sideways because I really like that little bit at the end. And I'm going to have my little thistle flower kind of sitting right in that little spot. And so now I'm just, I have all my pieces trying to decide how I'm going to put all these things together and where do I want the placement of everything. So I've gone ahead and used my adhesive again, my liquid glue, and just put something heavy on there for a second. And then now I am going to cut off the excess. Save that for another project maybe. And so now in order to, I cut off, like I mentioned earlier, some of these other bits from this stamp that would have just been really difficult to cut around. And so now I'm going to add those back. Like the thistle had some little design at the top, and so I'm adding that back in. And that little sprig that was kind of off to the side, I'm going to go ahead and stamp that back. And so I'm just covering up some of the stamp just so I don't get a ton of stuff that I don't want. Most of it will be covered up, but so see, all I'm doing is putting back the little pieces that I cut off. And this is so when I attach my flower, it'll all be covered up. And I did get a little bit of ink over on the side there, but you know what? I took a baby wipe to it and I was able to wipe it right off really quickly. So that worked out well. So archival ink, hit it with a baby wipe really quickly and you'll be all right. So I am popping everything up with foam tape because that's the way I roll. I like foam tape. Love it, love it. And I love having that dimension. So of course now I've got a layer there that's popped up, the heart and the flower, and then I have those extra leaves on top of the, what do you call it, on top of the flower. So I've got 2 layers there too. So I stamped my Heartfelt Thanks, which is from Heartfelt Art Stamp Set, which is the same one that the heart and the thistle image comes from. I think that's a thistle. I'll be really embarrassed if that's not what it is. I don't know flowers at all. So, oh, I totally missed this. Okay. So in order to emboss with archival ink, because it does tend to dry fast, I first stamped in my embossing ink and then my archival, and then it stays wet long enough for me to be able to emboss. And I just embossed with some clear embossing powder. And then now I'm using my little tiny mini dauber to ink up the sides of my heart with my thistle color so it's, you don't see those edges. And I'm almost done. So I'm going to use some foam tape to attach my sentiment. And I did cut that out and I actually cut it apart. So Heartfelt Thanks, it's one stamp, but I cut them apart just so I have a little bit of division there and can move those around where I want them. So just adding that on top of my heart. I'm almost done here. We're going to add the little tiny hearts again with some foam tape. And so everything is on. I did cut off the excess heart that was hanging over. Now I'm throwing on a little Wink of Stella because, well, you need a little shine and a little glimmer. I love it. Glimmer, glitter. So I did not end up using enamel accents. I thought I was going to initially, but I did go ahead and just put some faux stitching with my white gel pen, a couple of rows of that, just to add a little design to that little craft piece that's there. And this just about wraps it up for me. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the project. Check out Wendy's brand new products. They are fantastic. I'll leave some links where you can buy them. Don't forget to head over to my blog and leave a comment so you can be entered into the prize drawing. Thanks so much. Happy crafting.